Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to being genuinely well-informed on topics that truly matter. Today, we're plunging into something incredibly vital: how we catch the next global health threat before it becomes a crisis. Imagine a world where the first signs are right there, under our noses, but our systems just aren't set up to see them. That's the challenge we're really unpacking today. We'll be exploring the critical but, often overlooked role of veterinary surveillance, how that helps with pandemic prevention. And our guide through this is the remarkable work of Dr. Girma Kebede. He's a leading veterinary public health specialist, a pandemic preparedness educator too, with, over a decade training outbreak responders across East Africa.
Yeah, and it's a challenge Dr. Kebede saw very clearly, especially during his advisory work with Ethiopia's Public Health Institute back in the early days of COVID-19. He identified these three critical gaps, specifically in the veterinary area, that let what he calls silent spreaders just go unnoticed. And honestly, they're quite alarming when you look at them. So first, you've got silent spreaders themselves. The data here is really, really striking. An astounding 78% of emerging infectious diseases. This is according to that 2023 Nature study. They actually start in animals.
78%. Wow. That's not just a small number. That's nearly every major threat starting out in animals first. So, okay, if that's where they begin, what are we missing? Why aren't we catching them?
Exactly. And that leads right into the second gap, what Dr. Kebede terms sentinel blind spots. See, even though we know about this animal origin, our surveillance systems often aren't looking in the right places. Think about Africa, for instance, a continent we know is particularly vulnerable to these zoonotic diseases. But only about 12% of nations there regularly test livestock at really high-risk spots like wet markets. And those markets are, classic hotspots for what we call zoonotic spillover.
Spillover, right, where diseases jump from animals over to humans.
Precisely.
Okay, so we know most threats are coming from animals, but we're not systematically checking the very places where that jump is most likely. That sounds like a big blind spot. What was the third gap?
The third one is about data disconnects. So even when veterinary teams do collect really vital information, maybe spot something unusual, those reports often just don't make it to the human health teams. It creates these dangerous information silos. It stops us getting that complete picture of emerging threats. You might have vets seeing strange patterns, but that intelligence just isn't flowing where it needs to go to protect people.
So the surprising truth really comes out here, doesn't it? Pandemics often kick off in animals, but because our health systems are so focused on humans, we're nearly always the last to know. We end up reacting when it's maybe too late instead of proactively preparing. Okay, so let's unpack this. How does Dr. Kebede teach us to actually bridge these gaps? He's not just pointing out problems, right? He has a framework.
Oh, absolutely. He's very solutions-focused. Dr. Kebede teaches something he calls the One Health Surveillance Triad in his workshops. It's a really comprehensive approach. It ties together three key areas based on that core idea that human, animal, and environmental health are all fundamentally linked. You can't separate them. So first, there's animal health monitoring. This basically maps out the pathway from, say, a farmer noticing something odd with their animals to the local vet diagnosing it, and then potentially all the way up to advanced lab analysis.
Right, that makes sense. Empowering those first eyes on the ground, the farmers, the local vets. What's the second part of the triad?
Second is environmental sampling. This is more proactive. It involves actively checking things like water sources, soil, even insects like mosquitoes, looking for pathogens. So it's about detecting the actual virus or bacteria out there in the environment, maybe even before it infects an animal or a person.
Okay, so animals, the environment, was the third leg.
And third is human syndromic surveillance. This means systematically tracking unusual patterns of symptoms in people. Things like clusters of unexplained fevers or respiratory illness. Setting up early alerts for those clusters gives public health officials a heads up that something unusual might be starting. It's like an early warning system for human health.
That framework sounds really robust, on paper. Mm-hmm. But this is where it gets really interesting for me. How does this actually work in the real world? What are some of the maybe innovative tools or community approaches Dr. Kebede talks about that are making a difference, saving lives?
Yeah, this is where it gets exciting. He highlights some truly transformative tools in his courses. One is called FAST-Time, that's F-A-S-T, Foresight Animal Sentinel Technology. It uses things like automated monitoring, AI, within animal populations to spot subtle changes in health or behavior that might signal disease. And there's a really compelling example. Taiwan used this kind of tech to detect avian flu in poultry a full 3 weeks before any human cases showed up.
3 weeks?
Yeah.
Wow. And an outbreak, that's an eternity, isn't it? That's potentially the difference between containing something locally and it's spreading globally.
Absolutely. That lead time is invaluable. And then thinking about involving the community.
Yeah.
That's where participatory surveillance comes in. It's a concept Dr. Kebede is passionate about. He actually ran a pilot project himself back in 2023. They trained Ethiopian dairy farmers to report any unusual animal deaths just using simple SMS text messages. Just think about that power. Thousands of farmers becoming frontline disease scouts, reporting directly. The speed and the sheer reach you get from that, it's game-changing.
That's incredibly practical.
Yeah.
Simple tech, huge impact. And you mentioned another fascinating technology earlier, something about wastewater.
Yes, wastewater viromics. It sounds complex, but the idea is quite straightforward. You analyze sewage wastewater for the genetic material of viruses. This gives you an early, sort of anonymous snapshot of what pathogens might be circulating in a community. And it's proven itself. It was used successfully to detect H5N1, the bird flu virus, in U.S. sewer systems before any clinical human cases were even reported.
Before people even got sick enough to go to the doctor.
Exactly. And look, these aren't just theoretical ideas in a lab somewhere. The real-world impact is becoming clear. Just last month, actually, one of Dr. Kebede's former students, someone he trained, used this kind of integrated approach, animal surveillance, community reporting, to contain a zoonotic outbreak in Uganda. They managed to contain it within just 48 hours.
48 hours.
Yeah.
That's astonishing. That's the kind of rapid response public health dreams about. Okay, so taking all this in, what does it mean for, say, building stronger defenses maybe in your own community, or just for understanding how these global systems are supposed to work? It sounds like there's a practical way to implement this locally, beyond just the cool tech.
There absolutely is, and this is central to Dr. Kebede's work. Through his training programs, which, by the way, are WHO certified, meaning they meet a global standard for public health education, he implements a clear 4-phase framework. It's designed for exactly this kind of local action. Phase 1 is what he calls community armor. This is all about training local people, teachers, farmers, even hunters, people who are out in the environment to be disease scouts, giving them the basic knowledge to spot and report unusual health signs they might see in animals or people.
So really integrating the community's eyes and ears right into the system from the start. Okay, what happens next if a scout spots something potentially worrying?
That triggers phase 2, veterinary triage. Here, local veterinarians use a very concise field protocol Dr. Kebede developed. It's just 5 key questions to quickly assess unusual cases. Things like, are there any mass die-offs? Are animals showing neurological signs? Any sudden drops in milk production? That sort of thing. It helps them rapidly figure out if something needs urgent investigation.
A quick practical checklist for the field. Got it. Then
Phase 3 is about building lab diagnostic bridges. This is crucial. It emphasizes getting human and animal health labs working together, sharing resources and information. Rwanda's shared sequencing facility is a great example he points to. They can process both human and animal samples in the same place, which breaks down those dangerous silos we talked about earlier.
yeah, that integration seems absolutely key. It's not just collecting data, but making sure it gets connected and analyzed properly. And the final phase.
The final piece, phase 4, is real-time alerts. This involves using models like Kenya's Zoonotic Threat Radar, which Dr. Kebede actually helped adapt. These systems take all the incoming data streams from the community, the vets, the labs, and turn them into immediate actionable warnings. These alerts can then be sent out quickly to health officials, ministries, whoever needs to know, allowing for timely intervention. It's really about closing that loop from detection to a rapid, informed response.
Wow. This whole deep dive has really shone a light on a critical piece of the puzzle, hasn't it? Something often overlooked in global health discussions. We've seen how the future of stopping pandemics isn't just about fancy labs or hospitals for humans. It really hinges on this vigilant watch over animal health and these deeply integrated One Health approaches. So hopefully you listening have now gained a powerful shortcut to understanding this vital frontline defense against whatever might come next.
And I think it leaves us with a really profound thought, doesn't it? Building directly on Dr. Kebede's work and insights, the next pandemic threat, it's very likely already circulating out there right now in animal populations. But the difference this time, potentially, unlike with COVID-19, is that if we truly embrace these interconnected strategies, these One Health principles, well, this time we might actually see it coming. It really encourages you, the listener, to think about the incredible power we have through foresight. If we just pay attention to the right signals across human, animal, and environmental health. It fosters, I hope, a real sense of empowered awareness about just how connected our world truly is.